Kevin Stitt serves 4 million citizens as the 28th governor of the great state of Oklahoma. He is committed to making it a top 10 state, so whether you want to move your family there or your business or just take a nice vacation, Oklahoma is a place to live the American dream, and their governor is determined to make it even better. Please welcome to our show in Nashville for the first time, Governor Kevin Stitt. Governor, great to have you here. And, you know, you've got some stuff going on in Oklahoma.
Absolutely, man. It's great to be here with you guys.
Well, we're excited to have you, and I want to get started by talking about some of the things that you are doing, one of it which, and it's been controversial, but you have, along with the legislators, decided that when people go to a school library or a public library, they should know that there are certain materials that are not really appropriate for children. Now, nobody's saying you want to ban books, but that's what you get accused of.
It's unbelievable to us. I mean, it's pretty common sense in Oklahoma that we're going to protect our kids. We're not banning books, but we're not going to over-sexualize. We're not going to allow pornography in schools. Overwhelmingly, Oklahomans support me on this issue. So we want to put parents back in charge in Oklahoma. And it's pretty common sense. And some of the stuff that we've seen in some of the elementary books in our libraries, it's just unbelievably disgusting.
And why would any right-thinking citizen want children to see that kind of material?
It is beyond me why we're getting any kind of pushback whatsoever. Again, I think it comes from, the George Soros. It comes from these groups out of New York, California. They're going to come in and sue and try to spin everybody up that we're trying to ban books. It's not true. We want to teach kids. We don't want to indoctrinate them, and we're not going to overly sexualize. We're not going to allow pornography, gender identity in our elementary schools.
You've made a clear distinction that this is not about adults, this is about children. I am shocked at the pushback that comes as if you have gotten a can of gasoline, a book of matches, and you're going to go burn the library down because you don't want kids to be able to read a cartoon book.
Yeah, it's just craziness. We got to get back to teaching our kids, again, like I said, not indoctrinating them. The other thing, one of my favorite bills I signed this year was the Save Women in Sports bill. And we basically are just going to say, thank you. I basically just said that we're not going to let a biological male compete in a girl's sport, okay? Pretty self-explanatory. And then the Washington Post interviewed me. They were like, Governor, you signed this controversial bill. And I was like, well, which one? And they were like, oh, this Save Women in Sport. I said, well, it's really not controversial in Oklahoma. I said, we know the difference between a boy and a girl. And
how novel.
And I'm telling you, these young ladies that compete in track at the University of Oklahoma or play volleyball, these 14-year-old girls just thanking me for giving them an ability to have a scholarship and a fair competition. And so it's really common sense. And then I had to ban transgender surgeries, permanent transgender surgeries for minors, okay, in the state of Oklahoma.
And that shouldn't be controversial.
It shouldn't
You're
be
protecting
controversial.
a child.
And like you said, if somebody wants to have an elective surgery, they can do that after they're an adult. I'm not going to use taxpayer dollars to do it, but they can go do that.
Sure.
But we have an obligation to protect our young people. And so, again, these are minors. They can't buy alcohol or cigarettes. And so we're not going to let them permanently alter and do permanent harm to themselves as minors in the state of Oklahoma.
You also have sent some of your National Guard troops down to the border because, like every state, this is not just a border state issue, the 7 or 8 or however many million the number is now of people crossing without any screening. Did you get much criticism from people of Oklahoma because you sent some of your folks down there to help protect the border?
You know, quite the opposite. I mean, we track our calls that come into the governor's office and really just tremendous support. Hey, thanks, Governor, for protecting us. We're a border state right above Texas. And so I've been to the border with all my fellow governor friends, and Abbott had us down there. It is absolutely a travesty what the Biden administration is doing at our southern borders. We have an obligation to protect and know who's coming through our southern borders. The way it affects Oklahoma is all the fentanyl deaths, they've gone up 500% since I've taken office.
500%.
Yes, the fentanyl deaths have gone up 500%. That's all coming from the southern border. And here's the deal. We need one policy change.
Yeah.
And it's simply the Remain in Mexico policy. That's the way Trump had it. Biden canceled that day one in office. That's created this mass migration, right? So now everybody knows that if you just touch the U.S. border, you get released, you get a piece of paper that says show back up in 2 years to your court date.
Yeah.
How many people do you think are showing back up in 2 years?
Probably not a lot.
That's right. So we have to have the Remain in Mexico policy. We need immigration reform. We have a 12% Hispanic population in Oklahoma. They do an amazing job. But everybody with a brain knows we need to know who's coming through our southern border and have a protected border.
Absolutely. You're working hard to make Oklahoma one of the top 10 states in the country, making it tourist-friendly, business-friendly. What are some of the specific things that you target to say Oklahoma is the place for you?
I came from the business world when I became governor, and I'm trying to run the state of Oklahoma more like a business. We have 30,000 state employees, $22 billion budget. And, I believe in lower taxes, smaller government, more efficient government.
You'd never fit in Washington. There's no way. You better stay in Oklahoma, brother.
But we have the largest savings account we've ever had in state history right now. We cut taxes in Oklahoma. And then also the way we led through COVID, people saw that. I was one of the few governors in the country that refused to do a mask mandate statewide, kept our state open.
And it's interesting, states that had a more open policy had equal, if not better, results in terms of health outcomes. So we learned through all of this. And I recognized in the early days, we just didn't know. But then quite frankly, I think we got lied to. Guys like Fauci kept saying, wear 2 or 3 masks. I said, dude, I can't hardly breathe with 1. You put 3 on me. And I'm going to suffocate. Only my wife wants me to wear that many masks. And she's upping the life insurance on me for it. But, I think we look back and we're thinking maybe it was states like Oklahoma and others that had it right from the beginning.
Yeah, I think so. Here's what I believe. You don't put your Constitution in the attic just because somebody in Washington, D.C. named Fauci tells you to, right? We're gonna make sure that we believe in personal responsibility, freedoms. Let's be transparent with the data. Let's give everybody all the information. But we're not going to dictate and we're not going to close businesses and say this is an essential business, this is not. Yeah. The only non-essential business is the one that you don't invest in or you don't get your paycheck from. And so people were just kind of losing their minds during that time period. We had some state governors closing churches down in some of the blue states.
Crazy.
Where is our protections under the Constitution? And so, again, it was really baffling to me how we just kind of gave over our freedoms in some states. It was unbelievable.
You're doing something that I find very intriguing, and I want to ask you about it. It's the Modern Justice Task Force that you're working on to not incarcerate everyone that has committed the crime, but actually in doing so, you're working to get people integrated back into the society, but keeping the violent offenders away. Now, explain how you're approaching this and what results you're seeing.
When I took office, I realized we were 50th, last place in the country in incarceration rates. So I was like, well, there's something wrong with our people or more our policies. So I started digging into our policies. Today, we have 5,000 fewer people incarcerated than when I took office. I've closed 4 prisons. I've saved the taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. Now we're #1 in the country in lowest recidivism rate. That means people going back into prison.
That's an extraordinary number. Unbelievable.
And basically, what we said is, listen, let's lock up people that we're really afraid of, not just who we're mad at. So if they had a fine or some kind of parole issue where they weren't able to meet with their parole officer, there were a lot of things were kind of weird from a business perspective that didn't make sense. So public safety is #1 for me. We all have to have safe communities, and we back the blue in Oklahoma. I've given our law enforcement. Thank you. When you're fiscally conservative, you can invest in certain things. I gave our law enforcement a 30% pay increase this past year.
Good for you.
So we back the blue in Oklahoma. But making sure that task force brings everybody to the table, our prosecutors and the Department of Corrections and and then the second chance folks, and we kind of get together and we started saying A through D, what is a violent, nonviolent crime? What should they be punished for? What is the time? Because we saw some counties give somebody 30 years and some counties give somebody a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's too wide of a gap. We've got to kind of narrow that and actually punish the folks that we need to and make it more fair across the system.
Governor, I commend you for it, and you're doing the kind of job we hope all 50 governors will do. I've got my eyes on one particular governor over in your neighboring state, Arkansas, and I'm keeping up with her, and she better do well, but I think she is. But so are you, and we're excited to have you here. I hope you'll keep up with Governor Stitt on social media, and we've got the links for you to do just that. If you'll go to Huckabee.tv, we will connect you. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I hope you will now. The button is just below this video, and there's a little bell next to it. If you click on those, YouTube will reluctantly start letting you know when we've got a new video uploaded.